Hello everyone, welcome back to part 3 of completing every Pokemon game's Pokédex. In this video, I'll be completing Pokemon Emerald's notoriously ridiculous Pokédex, coming 3 years after Pokemon Crystal and adding about 135 Pokemon, making the total to 386 Pokemon, excluding the mythicals. So this one's going to be a struggle, so let's just get started. Our adventure begins after breaking free from the back of the moving truck my mom stuffed me in. We introduce ourselves to the condescending neighbor Brandon. The kid up north said he heard someone screaming up ahead. Professor Birch is getting mauled by a tiny raccoon. And now this is where we get to pick our starter. And I pick Mudkip, because it's correct. After that we run into Brandon, who challenges me to a battle, which was anticlimactic, and also Wally, who by the way is just the most endearing implementation of the catching tutorial. That's all. Anyway, in the forest, a businessman is getting mugged and I am forced to save him. But he's a capitalist. I have to let him suffer. I see what you're about, Nintendo. After getting the first badge from Roxanne, a Team Aqua grunt mugged a businessman and an old man and fled to an incomplete tunnel. An unfortunate decision for him. The mayor thanks me by giving me the latest iPhone. He also asked me to deliver a letter to Steven in Duford. Do I look like an Amazon employee to you? And after defeating the second gym leader, getting the EXP share from the mayor, and meeting the Team Aqua leader Archie in Slateport, who calls his members simps for losing to a child. Okay man, I went north to Mauville, defeated Watson, reunited the family, and the road to Fall Arbor takes us through a mountain, a fiery cave, out a path to a rest house, an ash shield, then finally reached the town. What the hell, that was like 4 environment changes. And in Fall Arbor, we run straight past Fall Arbor and then head to Meteor Falls. And apparently Team Magma and Aqua are fighting over some meteorite from some scientist. Magma takes a meteorite, then runs, and Archie apologizes for assuming that I was an Aqua grunt. After going to Mount Chimney, we find Maxie attempting to erupt a giant volcano to expand the land. Did you think this through? You want to expand the land for human expansion. For what humans, Maxie? They'd be dead, you simple-minded, genocidal buffoon. After destroying Maxie's brain with large words and facts, Archie asked me, whose side are you on? Sir, I was bound by the laws of the universe to stop this man. I literally couldn't move on with my badges. I'm on the side that allows me to get more badges. Anyway, Gym 4 was a cakewalk. Stepping out of the gym, Brendan gave the Go Goggle, which opens us up to the desert ruins. Now we have to go back to Petalburg to defeat Norman, who is already so notorious for being so incredibly difficult, but with some amount of strategy, you can easily take him down. Unfortunately for me, I'm stupid, so this took 30 minutes. And now that we can surf, we get access to Route 115, which holds Kelpie berries, which are very important for evolving one Pokemon, Feebas, who we'll talk about later. After saving Hoenn's Weather Institute from Team Aqua and getting the only cast form in Hoenn, we get access to Fort Tree City, where we can take on the gym. Okay, there is something in the way. Maybe Steven, who is conveniently standing on the bridge right outside of Fort Tree, can tell me what is in front of the gym. It's a Kecleon? Chameleons can't turn invisible. This is false information, Game Freak. Anyway, the Fort Tree gym took me a couple of tries. We then go to Mount Pyre. Top the peak, we take on a gauntlet of Aqua grunts, which is definitely not copy-pasted from the Pokemon Tower. It's different, because there is a double battle at the end. At the end, Archie takes a red orb and bails. Where did you go, you old-ass pirate man? Great, now I can't sleep at night. Anyway, the old lady tells us that the 2 orbs can't be separated, and I must reunite them so they can live peacefully. If only I cared. The magma hideout is basically a volcano, which is very maze-like. Cool, but also annoying as hell, especially when every nook and cranny is filled with a magma grunt. I make it to Maxie and he uses a blue orb to control Groudon, only for it to rocket into the sky and completely ditch Maxie. Then he blames me for it. Sir, I'm a 10-year-old child. I can't lift a dinosaur. Please calm yourself. He says he wants to fight and I exterminate his Pokemon, and he's willing to listen when I say there's a reason for Groudon leaving, and then he leaves to go after it. Well, that was a very productive conversation. In Slateport, Captain Stern is finished with the submarine project. Good job, Stern. I'm very proud of, and Team Aqua stole it. Thankfully, I know exactly where their hideout is, It's in the city crawling with aqua grunts. While the Team Magma hideout is a volcano, the Team Aqua hideout is Silphco underwater. And at the end of the road, we fight Matt, who was trivial. Unfortunately, this shirtless wannabe was only there to distract me so Archie could run away. Clever boy, Matt. In Moss Deep, after spending 30 minutes losing to 2 children, the next stop was the Moss Deep Space Center, where Maxie was arguing with Steven. We have a double battle with Steven, and this is where we learn that Maxie has given up. Literally. He tried to take control of Groudon, failed, and he said, well, we failed here, might as well move on to our next plan. Them entirely giving up on their plan of taking control of a legendary Pokemon at this point with the new Pokemon game's philosophical story was a bit refreshing. Now that I have the 7 gym badge, I can dive underwater and reach the seafloor cavern. We're after a sailor who really wants his whale. I guess he didn't get the memo. Plowing through the horde of aqua grunts, I got there before Archie. What, did you stop for some biscuits? Did you get me one? Predictably, the power of the red orb only made Kyogre more mad. And then Maxie arrives and tells Archie what he figured out like 2 dungeons ago. We arrive at the surface and realize that climate change has really taken its toll. So to clean up this mess, we only have one option. Go to Sky Pillar. Because what do you do when land and sea are fighting? You call the sky, of course. So I climb up to the top of the pillar and I see this massive snake. He gives me one look and scrams. In Sootopolis, the 2 legendaries are fighting in a way that seems impossible for Kyogre to lose, so Rayquaza comes down and tells them to go to their room. They sling back away to their caves. Now that I'm free from the plot, I can take on the last gym, which has ice puzzles, which took me longer than I'd like to admit. Gym leader is Juan.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
Was a lot easier than most people say. Now all that was left in the story was Victory Road, where early in the dungeon you meet Wally, who's determined to defeat me. He's gotten stronger, he's at the end of his character arc, and all he has to do is to defeat his rival. Come on Wally, you got. Unfortunately for him, he loses. I'm sorry you had to beat this way, Wally. The rest of Victory Road doesn't matter because it's just a cave. You've seen caves. Jumping straight to the Elite Four, I spent a couple of days trying to defeat the Elite Four. I know this is a game for children, but I've already established that I'm stupid and I don't know how to make a balanced team. So I gave up and caught Rayquaza and swept the rest of the Elite Four. But we still have a lot more to go. After I woke up, I see a broadcast on the TV saying a mysterious Pokemon is flying across the region. And this is where we can choose which Lati we want to hunt. But we'll get to that later. I already got the other starter Pokemon after the first gym. After that, I got Route 1 Pokemon like Zigzagoon and Wurmple, but where I ran into my first dilemma. Pokemon like Seedot and Volbeat exclusively have a 1% chance to spawn. Thankfully, I can trade for a Seedot in Westboro and catch a Volbeat in Sapphire, which are much better ways of keeping me sane. Certain Pokemon like Golbat can only evolve from friendship, which you can raise from methods such as using it in battle, catching it in a friend or a luxury ball, keeping it in your party, and giving it a suit bell. I don't know how inhumane it is to find the formulaic method of increasing friendship within a pixelated game about pixelated animals in a game from 2004. So yeah, there are about 5 friendship evolutions and only one of them is in Emerald. So it's crucial that I must catch Zubat as soon as possible. That's what I would say if I were smart. Unfortunately, since I'm not, this took a lot more time than expected. I already got the root fossil from the desert ruins and the claw fossil sunk into the ground, so now I can get not only the fossil but also a ditto for breeding from the desert underpass. Route 119 is the only place in Hoenn where you can catch a Feebas, which has a 50% chance to spawn. Pretty easy, right? No. There are about 436 fishing spots on this route, and only 6 have Feebas. And what 6? Well, they're randomized when you start the game, and there's no way to find out other than fishing randomly. Not only that, but each of those 6 fishing spots have a 50% chance of Feebas. So you might have just stumbled across one of the fishing spots, but instead of a Feebas, you got a weird looking piranha. This took about 2.5 hours, which might not sound a lot, but when you're doing the exact same thing for 1/6 of your day, it can get pretty tedious. I don't know how masochistic Game Freak thinks we are to not only catch a Pokemon that takes hours to catch, but also have a Pokemon be ridiculously difficult to evolve. Speaking of which, to evolve Feebas, we have to bend over backwards and question our life choices. This ugly ass fish wishes to be beautiful, and the only way to evolve it is to max its beauty stat. In Generation 3, Pokemon added contests, a type of fashion show for Pokemon. Alongside, it also added 5 different stats: coolness, cuteness, cleverness, toughness, and beauty. Each of these stats are affected by what Pokeblocks you feed your Pokemon, which you can make with berries. Remember when I said I need to collect those Kelsey berries because they raise beauty? Any blueberry increase beauty, but especially the Kelsey berries. Thankfully, making Pokeblocks isn't as difficult as all the other things I just mentioned. All you have to do is put in 4 berries and then press A when the arrow in the middle lines up with the arrows on the corners. So I fed Feebas the Pokeblocks and I evolved it. All that time for this dumb looking, I don't even know what it is. A serpent. I think it's a serpent. A water serpent. Anyway, the fact that Pokemon decided to stick with the pseudo legendaries ticks me off a bit. Bagon and Beldum are the new pseudo legendaries, but thankfully Bagon evolves at level 50 while Beldum evolves at level 45. Much better than Dratini and Larvitar. Anyway, Regirock, Regice, Registeel, Latias, Latios, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza are the new legendaries. I already got Rayquaza in completing the story. Also, can I say that the puzzle for the Regi trio is probably one of the coolest puzzles in Pokemon to this day. You go to the sealed chamber, read the braille on the wall, follow its instructions, and then you can catch the Regis in their respective locations. So cool. Anyways, the Eon duo were annoying as heck. They're roaming Pokemon. Roamers will always be frustrating, but in this game they're adding the marking map, showing where the roamers are on the map. So it should be easier, right? But you can only use it after you've seen the Pokemon. And unfortunately, since I used the Master Ball on Rayquaza, catching Latias would be a doozy. This took about 3.5 hours. Just let that sink in how much time that is. Also, please don't forget to subscribe. And the only way to get the other Lati in Pokemon Emerald is through the Eon ticket, an item that hasn't been available for 2 decades, or trade for another game. Thankfully, this took less than 10 minutes. So, all that's left is Kyogre and Groudon. Kyogre is found in the Marine Cave, while Groudon is found in the Terror Cave. So, we're done, right? But no. In Gen 3, Pokemon added the National Dex. To put it simply, it's a Pokédex with every Pokemon that isn't available in the region and every Pokemon that is. So yeah, we're going to have to play the other games, other than Emerald. But thankfully, completing the regional dex doesn't leave me empty-handed, getting me this diploma and a Johto starter, and I obviously chose Chikorita. And after this, I went to Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, the first remakes in the series. The only noteworthy Pokemon are the legendary beasts, as which beast you encounter depends upon what starter you choose. But since getting roamers is too difficult without a Master Ball, I'm going to get them later. But later when? I mean, we've crossed off Pokemon Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire, Fire Red, and Leaf Green. Isn't that it? No. Around the same time as Generation 3, Pokemon released 2 games for the GameCube, called Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. They're extremely long and difficult games. So this took a long time. I don't know what sadistic scum works at Game Freak, but the fact that you have to complete the Pokédex in both games to get the Johto legendaries is stupid. Still, no matter how masochistic this is, I still have to complete it. To get the 3 legendary beasts, you have to play through the story and get them at their respective locations. Entei at Mount Battle, Raikou at the Shadow Pokemon Lab, and Suicune at the Under. Alright, I should mention that these games added a type of Pokemon, Shadow Pokemon. Pokemon that have been so unbelievably abused that they've turned evil. And they're the only Pokemon you can catch, unfortunately. For Ho-Oh, you have to catch and purify each and every Pokemon in Colosseum. 48 Pokemon. For Lugia, you have to get the max tempo in every Shadow Chamber in XD, which is at least 36 Pokemon you have to catch, and with completing story you're probably going to catch a lot more. With completing the game's stories and catching all the Pokemon, this took me
more than a month
and the rest of my sanity. So after catching them and trading them to Emerald, and after nearly 1,000 hours,
and
for the loss of my sanity, gives me this completed Pokédex,
and
this diploma, and hopefully a successful video. Speaking of which, please subscribe. Anyway, I'll have to wrap up this video and see you later. Bye bye.